Hello and welcome back to the second video on the Shimano S-Phyre shoes, the R903, and in this case the special edition, limited edition color. So like all the things that I review on this channel and I give the Rev seal of approval, please consider supporting the channel by purchasing those items through me. I will leave my contact information in the description. Just reach out to me. I don't load everything up to my website because, well, I'm a one-man shop and I'm also the webmaster, and then every year I have to take down the stuff and put up the new colors and all that stuff. So a few things I just don't load up. So just contact me directly. Okay, so let's get into this. I did an unboxing for the size 45 in the Champagne RS903. Now, I mentioned in that video that I like to wear shoes that are not the conventional white, black type of shoe. It's kind of a marketing approach where I can wear a off the beaten path color and then be able to get someone to say, wow, that is a really cool looking shoe, but I could never wear that. Well, that's okay because it comes in white. It also comes in black, but that conversation would have never started if I had not worn something that was different. Being the contrarian and being a B-side, if you're old enough to remember, 45s or even LP records, the B-side was always the thing that didn't make it to the radio, but was typically pretty good. Might even be better, arguably. This is a 44. The 45 fit huge on me. And let's talk about fitting for a minute. When I put on a shoe, what I like to do is put put the shoe on, lace it up, and then I like to put my index finger on the back of the foot along the Achilles tendon and back behind the heel. And I like it to be a little bit of an effort to get my finger in there. If my finger just goes right in, that shoe's just going to be too big, right? So back to the first ride impressions, I don't recommend you do this, but I have a pretty good idea of when a shoe fits me or doesn't fit me. So my first ride on this in these shoes was a 127 mile, 9,000 foot climbing ride, about 8+ hours in the saddle. And initially in the first 5 to 10 miles, I was like, wow, my left foot has a little bit of pinching. And I thought, man, I think I screwed up. And I then, so when you pedal, you decide how you pedal, but the way I pedal is, if you can imagine that these are my toes and this is my arch, I push down and in on the pedal, right? So that my arch, whatever insole I'm using, is well supported, and I push down. And I keep my knees either tracking straight over my toes, or maybe they come over a little bit to the top tube. I don't pedal with my legs splayed out this way, push down on the pedals inboard. And so I started doing that. I started focusing more on that, and that removed a little bit of the pinching I was having on the pinky toe. Now, the other thing that is different from the stock setup is that I removed the stock insole. And the stock insole will come with your shoes, and they're generally pretty good. This one has a little bit of flex to it. And if you allow me a second or two, I'll get the SQ Lab insole out. Now, if you've been on this channel for a while, you know that I use SQ Lab saddles. I use SQ Lab insoles as well. And I find that they take a great fitting shoe and turn it into an exceptional shoe. But this time I thought, maybe the SQ Lab insole And let me go back to this. Because the shoe only comes in full sizes, so 44 or 45 were my two options for this limited edition color. I almost ride all my shoes with the SQ Live insole, so I said, okay, let me put that insole in my shoe. I think it is just a tad thicker, SQ Live being the bottom one. And I think it was taking away some of the shoe volume that Shimano designed into the shoe. The 44 fit me great lengthwise. It was just a tiny bit. But this was a 127-mile ride. And I mentioned in the first 5 to 10 miles, I thought, wow, there's a little bit of pinching and it's bugging me a little bit. Once I became engaged in the process of pedaling, it went away. So I never felt any discomfort for the rest of the 120 miles or so. So take that with a grain of salt. Your experience may vary. I think tomorrow, Tuesday, so today's Monday, April the 3rd. Tomorrow, Tuesday, I typically do a 50-ish mile ride, 40 to 60. It just depends on who shows up and the weather. So I think I'm going to put the stock insole back in and see how that shoe fits with just the stock insole. And one other thing that they do is you have different insoles, arch supports that you can put on. So maybe I'll play around with the arch support. I'll put the stock insoles back in. But these shoes really, they're really light. They feel really good. And in my case, I just needed to loosen up this front boa because I think I had it too tight on my left foot, the one that I said had a little bit of pinching. Once I loosened that up and I found the happy place between having enough support and not having it too tight, usually this is the strap that you will cinch down more than the front one. That way you don't get the pinching at the toes. After I figured out what that was in the first few miles, the shoe was perfect. It was great. It was a very, very good fitting shoe. Now, a couple of little details that I want to point out to you. And let's see if see this right here? These nice ridges on the back side of the top strap. That'll kind of lock into place there as you cinch that down. So that's a really nice touch. This back here, this up here feels really good, but you should be careful because you might tighten it too much because it just feels good to have it cinched down. The heel cup, now in the past, they always had kind of like a shark fin type of thing or something that was kind of abrasive on your socks. Now, I haven't worn Shimano shoes in quite a few years, and I was kind of glad that they got rid of that because it's holding the sock in place, but it's not really holding your foot in place, right? So I was kind of glad they got rid of that grippy type of material they had there. So that feels great. When you put your cleats on, you have this beautiful, let me see if it'll come up on camera. So you see this grid pattern here, and this cleat has a little arrow, and there's the straight line right there. Line those two up, and that's it. Your cleat is perfectly centered, right? Because you have a few others, but that's the thickest one right there. And so I had no problems setting these cleats straight out of the box. I didn't, because I don't have another one like this, I didn't have something to copy over. And then you might have noticed I use a fixed cleat. And it's funny because I just watched a video on Cade Media, Francis Cade, I believe. And the mechanic was ranting on 10 things he hates or something like that. And One of the things he mentioned was speed plate pedals and all of that float. And I don't like a lot of float, and I don't like a lot of float for my fitting clients as well. I like to reduce the amount of float and keep the person engaged in their pedal mechanics, because I think that goes a much longer way than allowing all this float. I understand some of you need it, believe in it, and great, just keep using that. That works for you. It doesn't work for me. I like a fixed cleat. I've always, well, for about 15, 20 years, I've been riding a fixed cleat. I do a lot of miles, and I don't have any knee pains, injuries, or hips, or anything like that. So it works for me. So unboxing, first ride impressions. We're going to keep riding this shoe. As I mentioned, we'll switch out the insole and see how that works. Maybe play around with the arch support. I have a fairly high arch, so I do like a higher arch support than other folks. And if you don't know what arch support does, it keeps your knee tracking straight. So when you pedal down, your arch doesn't collapse and your knee doesn't come in. So sometimes as a fitter, I may look to provide a higher arch support for someone so that their knee doesn't like collapse in. I'm sorry, their foot doesn't collapse, which then of course brings their knee in too much. Okay, that's all for today. As I mentioned, anything I review on this channel that I say is a good product, you can purchase through the channel. Contact information will be down below. Please like and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you up the road.